Okay.
Here, you have two pillows, so you can
yeah.
just put it on the floor. It's fine. All right.
Thanks for having me and sitting down with me and chatting about something we're both passionate about.
Sure.
Design thinking. So can you kind of tell us what you do at SAS and how you use design thinking?
Sure. So I am the Director of Innovation and Advanced Studies at Singapore American School. I've been here 20 years, and so I've always been an educator at heart. So I've done everything from teaching middle school science to high school science to research and development, and now I'm in my current role rolling out a lot of those programs, or at least supporting the programs.
Yeah.
Design thinking kind of fell into our lap when we first started to set up what we call the Center of Innovation at Singapore American School. And we brought in a facilitator to actually kind of provoke our thinking and to say, how could we actually build a culture that then can help support programmatic development? And in that, we quickly realized that design thinking was a great user-based design model.
Yeah.
And we quickly realized that there were a lot of elements more than just following kind of a linear format of design thinking. And so we have, throughout the years, it's been about 7 years, we've integrated design thinking into just about everything we do, literally. So yeah, that's kind of my role, background, and how I at least fell into design thinking.
Cool. Now I think design thinking is getting really popular, and it seems like people have taken it and made it their own.
Right.
So what is design thinking to you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's more than a way of thinking. It's more than a process that supports learning. To me, and I really appreciate what the Teachers Guild does, where there's a highlight in the mindsets. Mm-hmm. Right, and understanding kind of your perspective and who you are, and then to kind of take that understanding, turn it outward, and start to learn who are your users, and really be intentional about that, and having those mindsets that help you to do that. I also like Tim Brown's work, where he talked about putting design teams together.
Yeah.
And so we also look at norming teams and norming all the work we do, including when students are learning in the classroom. They obviously have to maintain a positive intent, but they also learn to be more of thinking in an integrated way. Don't come to the table thinking in absolute terms that this is absolute, knowledge or absolute what has to happen. We throw it on the table, we kick it around, and we really see that as a really strong intentional practice for kids, right, from norming, right? But then when you look at the applications, whether it's in the classroom or what we do in our programs, it's just a sensational way to think creatively. Yeah. And when you think creatively, you're keeping the user in mind. And so a good example is our Catalyst project. Every kid experiences design thinking, especially at the beginning, where they come in, they either don't know what they want to do or they do. Either way, we put them into a really divergent type of thinking process. Right. And really have them kind of open their perspective and open kind of the available resources to them. Right. And then we kind of close that in as they start to refine and come up with a project idea, right? And so we're really intentional in letting them understand that process. Yep. But at the same point, we're also not really linear in our thinking. And so the kids might be in different projects or at different kind of positions in their project development, and so we'll try to respond to their needs at that time. Right. Yeah. Where we are more intentional and probably a little bit more linear is in our program development. Okay. And so if you were a teacher who was helping to develop a new course or new program, we once again would follow. We would talk to you about the mindsets and the norms, but then we would be really intentional in almost following a linear development. And it's really cool because design thinking, having that user-based design, really puts no longer the teacher in the center of the learning. It makes sure the student's in the center of the learning. And so it just creates a great way to make sure it's student-focused. A lot of creative ideas come out of it. And then when you get to the opportunity of actually prototyping, that's been pretty cool, because too often we think we've created a course or we create a program, it's in there and let's lock and load it for 5 years. Where this has really helped us to understand that no, we're going to learn in the process, we're We're going to bring all people in to get feedback and reiterate and kind of refine and improve before we really scale anything. So it's been really good, both in the classroom and in our program development.
Cool. Before I actually started working at SAS, Jay Longren, he asked me if I wanted to work with a student for the Catalyst program, and he wanted to create a curriculum for coding for elementary, and we ended up with like this project-based learning type of curriculum. And that was kind of my first taste of Catalyst, and I heard about Quest, and those two really, pumped me up and got me excited to kind of just know that I'll be working in the same school. Could you kind of just briefly describe those two programs for those who don't know?
Yeah, so I'll describe the Catalyst program. It's interesting. It's interesting because it has been very intentional for us to try to put a program into a school that every student experiences. So it is a graduation requirement that is as personalized as possible. And so there is no content standards. It is 100% skills. There are no formal assessments driven by teachers. It is 100% portfolio and project-based. And there is little or no guidance from a teacher in terms of really the project topic that the students really choose their own topic. So that creates quite a conundrum, right? I mean, as an instructor, you have to teach the skills, but the students have to be learning something.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I said design thinking at the beginning is so important, to really look at the full range of what's possible, or when a kid believes they have the right topic, to tear it apart, right? Look at all the variables and then bring it back together. And so if you were a student, you would come in day one, and we would first and foremost look at you and your learning profile. We'd want you to know about your strengths, your worldview, your interests, and we use professional level measures to give you information about yourself, and then it's a very reflective process, right? So we look inward, then we start to look outward, right? And so we start looking at what are all the possibilities, and then we use that user-based design to say, it's not just meaningful to me as a student, it's also going to be meaningful to those who it might impact or be about. And so in that, we've hopefully helped you with your learning profile. That becomes a professional profile. As you start to develop your project, we actually create a educational SMART goal. So you learn at professional level, measurable, attainable, results-oriented goal-setting process. And then what's really cool is this came back from another facilitator came in, we used the business canvas. So we've taken the business canvas, which is a model that's very entrepreneurial in its setup. We've used the same questions, and we've created a project. As most educators do, we steal the best stuff. Created a project-based type of learning based on that canvas. And so a student is learning literally the same process that an entrepreneur would be using in the real world to develop a business, right?
That's so cool.
From that, one of our biggest failures at the beginning is we had anticipated that kids had been able to manage their time in the classroom, that they'd be able to do it in this project. Well, no, not at all. In fact, the research shows 1 in 5 kids can actually manage when they're directing their own learning. So we worked with Microsoft to develop a project management model that they use. So once again, they've got this tool when they leave school to have how to manage projects. We then teach them how to communicate with adults, how to network, and ultimately they have to achieve a mentorship. So they initiate the mentorship. And that mentor is the content-specific expert or the process-specific expert. Because our teachers, if you're teaching one course, or maybe you have 2 people in the same, 2 instructors, and you have 30 kids, there's 30 different topics. So the mentor is essential, so much so that we have experts and residents who are constantly working with the kids, everything from production to entrepreneurship to engineering, all the hot spots that we find. And then you do need to create a meaningful, viable product, right? And so if you were in design thinking, it would be minimal viable product. We had to maintain meaningful to make sure that the kids kept that perspective. And then you present a TED Talk kind of concept at the end. Most projects that are really good are never finished. And so a kid can take it a second semester, they could take it a third semester, you could take it for you could take every other day off and actually work on the project. So we've got a lot of flexibility to do that. I think what Quest is the easiest way to describe it is the Catalyst on steroids. So instead of actually going to what might be considered more traditional classes, your project drives the learning from all those other disciplines.
Yeah.
And so as an instructor in Quest, you're doing your best to be bringing those elements of English and history and math in. So it's a little more intentional, and the kids have to complete a research project, so that's a little less voice and choice, but the topic is totally what they want to do.
Right. Yeah, it sounds similar to what the D School does, like get professors from multiple subject areas, give them a problem, or I guess they can work on their own problem, and you just kind of facilitate.
It is what we found, and something we've learned is because it's like a school within a school, there's still that school there. Right? It's not like a program within a school. Professors are free form and really just helping the kids' project. We still have to meet the standards of graduation in that project for high schools, right? So that's where there's a tension, right? Because we still kind of get those standards in there for math and science, yet we're trying to be as kind of non-discipline specific as possible. Yeah, it's tough.
Last question is if a teacher is interested in using in modeling design thinking for their students, or maybe just an educator who wants to use design thinking to transform a school, what advice would you give them?
First and foremost, don't underestimate the fact that there's mindsets and norms that need to be addressed, and there's some great reflective activities out there. I mentioned Teachers Guild and some others where you can actually have the kids think about what are their kind of core mindsets, what are the worldview, what are the norms that are needed, because when you throw something, a student who has been traditionally educated, when you throw this at them, is going to feel really uncomfortable. And they need to be prepared to understand what that discomfort does and why it's important. So I would start with that. And the second piece is I don't think there's a better way to actually explicitly teach and assess creativity. And so make sure that there's a strong understanding by the instructor of the design thinking model and how it can be used in different ways. But once you apply it in a classroom, there's some great supportive materials like EdLeader 21 Creativity Rubric aligns so nicely to the design thinking kind of steps. And so you can use that intentionally to show them, here's the rubric, here's intentional instructional sets, and here's how we can assess it, And so it's because I think it would be too difficult to just immediately throw a full design thinking process in there that's actually unit specific, that's really set for the classroom. Unless you do start small and you do some small, 15-minute, rapid prototyping or something, that's fantastic. But you have to be intentional in what you're trying to get out of it. And there's another resource I have to mention if you work with Buck Institute's, BIE's project-based learning, because you mentioned that earlier. They have a fantastic creativity rubric. And so that also aligns nicely to design thinking around creativity. So I think I could introduce some, there's a lot of things that match nicely, but that's probably a highlight that I would like to or something I'd like to highlight at this point.
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about it. So,
absolutely. Let's think of our next project we're going to do together.
Oh, for sure. I don't know there's so much to do.
It's going to be exciting. Awesome. Thanks.
If you are interested in learning more about design thinking and want to learn how to implement design thinking into your classroom, please make sure you check out my book. It's called Design Thinking in the Classroom. The link is in the description below.